guys, Joel here from the Home Recording Network. Today I want to show you guys how to get an amazing bass tone out of maybe a cheap bass that you have in your studio or a bass that you've just recorded directly by plugging right into your interface. And this is really just a three-step technique, and you can even use it on bass tones that you're working on in your song, even if you didn't record them or if they sound halfway decent already. So I have a cheap Yamaha bass guitar in my studio, and I don't really play bass. I'm a guitar player, but I do have one in my studio in case I ever need to lay down a bass track for anything. And it's not the best bass, and it actually sounds pretty cheap, but I can get a decent tone out of it using these techniques. So I've recorded a little sample of a bass line here, and I just recorded this by plugging the bass right into my interface. And I'm going to play this for you, and I'll show you the tone that I got uh, before I mix this, and then I'll show you what it sounded like after. So here's before. And after. So this bass sounded super wonky and super cheap before this, and that's because there's some frequencies that are typical in cheap bass guitar tones that we can really notch out and get this bass sounding halfway decent. So I'm just going to bypass everything here, and we'll just start with the first plugin, which is the SSL channel strip. So there's three EQ moves here, one here, one here, and one here. And I'm going to show you the most important one. So in a cheap bass tone, when you're recording with a cheap bass guitar, around 500 or 600 hertz, there's going to be that wonky tone. And that's what we got to alleviate. So right here at 600 hertz, this is where we took out almost 8 dB, and I'm going to boost this for you and show you what this frequency sounds like. So right there is probably the most important step. You really want to alleviate that nasty sound that's coming from this cheap bass that's building up around, 600 hertz. The second most important thing I feel is the low end. So when we're recording direct, we're not always going to start off with enough of that bass frequency from this bass guitar that we need on this instrument. So right at 80 hertz, I did a bell boost of almost 9 dB. So I'll just play this for you and bring this frequency down and back up. Now with bass, of course, we want that low end, but I also think it's important to have some of that attack or aggressive sound. So right at about 1.5K, we also did a boost to get some of that aggression out of the bass. And finally, with this SSL, we just added a little bit of compression here with a slow attack, and we're just getting a little bit of gain reduction here. So ready? So this is without the SSL on. And with. Next, what I like to do with bass is just add some saturation. So I just use the decapitator here, but you can use whatever saturation plugins you have. And this just adds some grit to the bass, some of that nice saturation that we all love on our bass. So here's before and after. And we can even increase this depending on how much saturation you want your bass to have. Lastly, I just created a send from this bass to this bass room, and I just threw a room reverb on here. So we want to make this bass sound like it wasn't plugged directly into an interface. We want to make it sound like it was actually mic'd up in a room. So that's what this is doing. And what you can do here is make this send stereo instead of mono, which is going to widen out the bass, which sounds kind of cool on bass. So this is just what the reverb sounds like here. So let me just play the bass with that. And here's without. And I'll throw it back in. So again, here's what we started with. And what we ended up with. Guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to download your free Ultimate Home Studio Mix Guide. I made this for you guys so you could start getting your mixes sounding better. There's a lot of great information in there. And be sure to reach out if you have any questions or if you need any help with your mixes. Thanks.